30 by-elections, there are fiery charges and counter-charges being leveled by the Jamaica Labour Party and the People's National Party in relation to the Southeast St. Mary by-election.
The JLP is questioning the commitment of the PNP's candidate for Southeast St. Mary, Dr. Shane Alexis, given his citizenship status as a Canadian. That story in just a moment. But first, the PNP is calling for the cessation of a debushing program underway in the Battleground constituency.
TVJ's Janella Precious has details.
The PNP pointed to a letter to the Executive Director of the Tourism Enhancement Fund, Dr. Carrie Wallace, from the National Solid Waste Management Authority. In it, NSWMA Executive Director Audley Gordon requested $29,750,000 for the purpose of removing bulk waste from 3 parishes. A little over $16 million of the amount will be spent in St. Mary. The opposition is insisting that this is simply a disguise by the government to buy votes in Southeast St. Mary. PNP Chairman Fitz Jackson gave this explanation.
St. Anne, St. Mary and Portland, over 50% of that expenditure is specifically in the constituency of Southeast St. Mary. It is for activities which they deem to be the removal of bulky waste material in light of the rerouting of cruise ships into the area as a result of the hurricane. Most of those rerouting of cruise ships is actually in Falmouth, not in St. Mary. There's no cruise ship in Pierre in St. Mary. And more specifically, there's none in Southeast St. Mary.
Using the example of the $800 million debushing program ahead of the 2016 local government election, General Secretary of the PNP, Julian Robinson, argued that there is a pattern of behavior associated with the JLP administration, one in which he contends where state funds are used to influence votes. He further expressed concern about the process used to select areas for debushing.
In the Belfield division, represented by Levon Freeman of the People's National Party, work has taken place without his knowledge, without the knowledge of the National Works Agency, without the knowledge of the St. Mary Parish Council. So who determines which sites to select? Who determines who should do the work? Who determines what allocation should be made? When the elected reps, when the appropriate agencies that should be dealing with this are deliberately bypassed.
In addition to writing the Office of the Contractor General and the Political Ombudsman on the issue, the opposition is demanding that the project be halted.
The board of the National Solid Waste must be held account of the funds it is taking from the TF to make sure that they have value for money. The board of the Tourism Enhancement Fund, its chairman, both entities' chairman and board members must be called to account for these expenditure. What temporary sites are being cleared in these parishes, as is claimed by the letter from the National Solid Waste? Is the TEF getting value for its money?
When contacted, Member of Parliament for West Portland, Darrell Vaz, rejected the opposition's claims about vote buying. We also put it to him that the matter has been reported to the authorities.
The People's National Party have a lot of pens and a lot of ink. Let them continue writing. The Jamaica Labour Party government is doing what is right and what is just, and this program that they have just raised happens to benefit St. Anne, St. Mary and Portland, and it is an ongoing program, and I can say that categorically.
Janella Precious, TVJ News.
Now, there are JLP's concerns about the PNP's candidate for the Southeast St. Mary by-election. The JLP at a press briefing today said while it recognizes that Dr. Shane Alexis was duly nominated, it's questioning his commitment to Jamaica. TVJ's Vashon Brown has our story.
On the campaign trail, the PNP's Dr. Shane Alexis referred to himself as Sugar Shane, the Jamaica Labour Party using his tagline threw this punch at the candidate after it was revealed that he's a citizen of Canada.
Shane Alexis is gone from sugar to last night imported sugar. Based on today's findings, he's now Canadian maple syrup. What a shame. What has the People's National Party come to?
The JLP acknowledges that as a Commonwealth citizen, Dr. Alexis is allowed to offer himself as a candidate in the upcoming by-election. However, questions are being raised about whether he's committed to Jamaica, given that he does not hold a Jamaican passport.
Shane Alexis had a genuine commitment to the people of Jamaica. He could have, just as he stamped or went to the trouble of getting his Canadian passport stamped with permanent residency in Jamaica to allow him to travel freely, he could have used the same effort to go through the process of becoming a naturalized Jamaican, if in fact he really felt the passion to be a Jamaican.
Giving the example of his dual citizenship matter in 2007, West Portland MP Darrell Vaz is also questioning the moral authority of the PNP.
In relation to what they put me through as a Jamaican citizen and the trauma, not to mention the $25 million, for them to turn around and ask the Jamaican people to vote or elect someone who has no ties to Jamaica other than a permanent residency is a scandal.
Meanwhile, the PNP has deemed as desperate the assertions by the JLP regarding the citizenship of Dr. Shane Alexis. The PNP is arguing that Dr. Alexis grew up in Jamaica and has served Jamaica in several capacities, including as president of the Medical Association of Jamaica and the Jamaica Medical Doctors Association.
I'm not surprised if other things won't be concocted to distract from the candidate, distract the candidate and to distract the voters from supporting the candidate. But we will continue to bring our message to the voters. The candidate is there on a daily basis.
Vashan Brown, TVJ News.
And speaking of dual citizenship, the issues which have dogged Jamaican parliamentarians have apparently been haunting the current Australian government. An Australian court has begun a long-awaited hearing into whether 7 MPs caught up in a dual citizenship saga should remain eligible for office. Under constitutional rules, Australian politicians cannot be dual citizens. The High Court of Australia will clarify whether there are any exceptions, such as for those who did not know there were dual nationals. If Deputy Prime Minister Barnaby Joyce is disqualified, the government could lose its one-seat majority. The news channel Al Jazeera has a look at the problem.
Larissa Waters resigned in July after finding out that she held Canadian citizenship as well as Australian. A clause in Australia's constitution bars citizens of foreign powers from Parliament. That implicitly includes those with dual nationality. Since attention focused on the clause, 7 MPs have been found to be dual citizens. Not all have resigned. Some think not knowing another country considered them citizens meant the clause shouldn't apply. This week, Australia's highest court will decide if they're right.
Really, do you take the Constitution strictly and saying simply that you have the status of being a dual national is enough to have you disqualified? Or is it going to say, well, so long as you didn't know or once you found out you immediately took steps to renounce, that's enough and we'll let you stay in Parliament?
The case could bring down the government. Barnaby Joyce is Australia's Deputy Prime Minister. He was born in Australia, but his father was born in New Zealand, and his nationality also passed automatically to his son. Australia's government has a parliamentary majority of 1. If the court finds Barnaby Joyce's election was unconstitutional, then either the candidate who came second to him would be elected in his place, or there'd be a by-election which Joyce could lose. If either happened, Australia's government would fall. Australia's Prime Minister says his legal advice is that not knowing is excuse enough for his deputy and the other dual nationality MPs.
In other news this evening, what people have to go through to get health care at some clinics across the country. At some places, people are lining up in the dark, hours before the clinics open. How early are people coming out? Why? And what's being done to fix the problem? TVJ's Shamela Mitchell reports.
Of the 330 health centers in Jamaica, 26 are in the parish of St. Anne. It's almost daybreak and already persons are at the St. Anne's Bay Health Center. They say they are here to access health care for various reasons. The clinic opens at 7 in the morning, but when we arrived minutes after 4, 5 persons were standing at the gate. But the people here tell us this is a slow day.
Sometimes you come and see like 15 people.
But why come out so early? Well, it's a first come, first serve process. The security guard usually starts handing out tickets to the people in line 1 hour before the 7 o'clock opening time.
Everybody try to come early to get an early number.
The lines are one thing, the staff are quite another. The people here are frustrated by what they claim is the poor attitude of some medical personnel.
They can't move a little faster, so we don't have to get up out of bed so early if we come. But sometimes in nursing we all get up and go and sit down and chat, and you can't do nothing besides sit down and wait till they come back to you.
Far from just frustrating, it can also be scary. 9 months pregnant, Tamara Gordon was among those in line at 4 in the morning. She's here for a checkup. She lives in a community about 30 minutes from the health center. Today, she happened to have a drive and company, but it's a journey she's made on her own in the past.
The road is lonely and dark. That's the reason why I feel scared.
Scared of this road, it leads from the main road to the St. Anne's Bay Clinic. About 3 minutes walk in pitch black at 4 in the morning. It was Hopeton Mackenzie who accompanied Miss Gordon.
Based on the time and the environment that we're living in right now, you know what I mean, you know, generally if people know that she's alone here, you know, she'll probably get robbed or, you know what I mean.
At 5:30 a.m., the security guard opens the gate. It's an hour and a half before the health center itself will be open. The people say show up at 7 and there's no guarantee you will be served on that day.
When you come no more time, you sit down in there and you only hear them say, them not doing any more medication.
Over in Hanover, the Lucy Health Center sees about 70 to 80 persons each day.
Come here all from 3 o'clock, then sleep here from another morning from today, Friday, then turn until another day to get a number.
We saw an elderly man walking into the facility. He told us he was on site after 3 in the morning.
I can't stand up and someone saying them, so I'm if you get medication, I'm if you get extra, I'm if you take extra, I'm if you go take blood test. So me have to come early for I play for a cup.
Unlike the people at St. Anne's Bay Health Center, they say if they show up any later, they stand the chance of being turned away. At worst or at best, it will take hours before they see a nurse or a doctor.
You can leave here at 6 o'clock and you're still here 10 o'clock in the night.
Meanwhile, officials at both the St. Anne's Bay and Lucy Health Centers say they're aware of the long lines, have tried and will continue to make things better. They say staffing is the big issue.
You need some kind of the specialist, the clinic, or once a month or just twice a month. We need for the specialist service.
For our medical doctors, I would say with 2 additional on the 7 to 5 shift, so as we could accommodate more persons in the morning shift in the day clinics. And for nurses, definitely we need more.
So what will the health ministry do about the issue? We spoke with Health Minister Dr. Christopher Tufton.
In some instances, there is no need for them to go that early, and they have been told not to. And because they know that it's a line, it's a process. People queue, doctors will see one patient at a time, and if they come after other persons, it's going to take time. You're going to still have that happening. So I don't think you're going to get rid of it entirely.
Shamela Mitchell, TVJ News.
Before the break, we talked about long lines waiting for healthcare. Now to long lines in traffic. It's been a nightmare for people traveling on Mandela Highway. The reason? Potholes created by recent persistent rains, according to the National Works Agency, NWA. But the agency says the rains have prevented them from fixing the potholes as they emerge. Still, they are promising an early ease. TVJ's Kirk Wright reports.
Motorists who use the Mandela Highway no longer look forward to going home. It's hot. The wait is long, and the traffic clearly isn't going anywhere fast.
A long time around an hour now, me know the traffic around down there, so.
Put a pain me bad. Why? The traffic, man.
How bad is it?
Real bad, real bad. Yeah.
Traffic delays on the Mandela Highway are not unusual, but lately the situation has become chronic. The general road network has been taking a battering from the recent rains.
Within the vicinity of Plantation Heights, there is a significant buildup of water. Now, this water is now seeping through one of the unfinished box culverts that we have built. We have blocked it, but because of the amount of water, that has built up over by in the open land near Plantation Heights. Some seepage is taking place, and that now has found its way onto the westbound carriageway.
The rains have left bad patches at different sections of the Mandela thoroughfare, which slows the traffic to an almost complete stop during peak hours.
What has happened is that there are about 3 or 4 areas along the Mandela that the wearing surface has deteriorated, and in some instances, a couple of instances, has gone beyond the wearing surface to the base.
In the evenings, the congestion usually starts where the Spanish Town Road traffic meets those coming from Washington Boulevard near the 6 Mile Bridge. Now what you're looking at is just an idea of what the traffic is like even at midday. The congestion is even worse during the evenings when people are heading home. Early this morning, the National Works Agency had started to patch the bad areas along the highway until Mother Nature intervened.
We started the process today, but we were not able to accomplish as much as we wanted to, because at about 1 o'clock it started to rain, even while the team was out there filling some of these holes.
But Mr. Shaw says the chronic congestion should be eased once the patching has been completed.
It's an effort that will continue tomorrow. In the meantime, what we're saying to the motoring public is that if you can avoid the westbound lane of the Mandela, that is persons leaving the city of Kingston heading home or heading towards Spanish Town, depending on where you're going, if you're heading to Bogwalk and beyond, we are suggesting that you go the Sligoville route. Otherwise, you may want to use the Portmore toll.
Kirk Wright, TVJ News.
Now, there were chaotic scenes in Clarendon this evening after flooding from heavy rainfall caused the closure of Bustamante Highway. The National Works Agency ordered the road closed until 7 o'clock Wednesday morning after a work team had to make a hasty retreat because of floodwaters. The team was working to replace a broken culvert at the section of the busy thoroughfare. Our correspondent says, as a result, motorists heading to Manchester and other parishes have had to go through the capital, Maypen, and that's causing a huge pileup of traffic. 10-minute trips are now taking hours as the traffic backlog extends even onto alternative routes.
A Gordon House committee today spit fire about the fact that the Security Ministry now has to find millions to fix 4 detention facilities built to house children separately from adults who end up in police custody. The committee was discussing the issue days after news emerged that some facilities were not being used. Today, a Gordon House committee was told the facilities were not in use because of a range of defects. But why were the problems not identified at the outset? TVJ's Herman Green picks up the story.
$32 million. That's how much the government will have to spend to renovate 4 children's detention facilities in Barretttown, St. James, Nain, St. Elizabeth, Moneague, St. Anne, and at Bridgeport in St. Catherine. And the Internal and External Affairs Committee of Parliament was not pleased about it. Here's why. The idea to build the facilities date back to 2012, when concern was raised that children and adults were being housed together. The units were completed and handed over to the Jamaica Constabulary Force in 2015. But upon inspection, they were deemed unsafe and unsuitable, and so were never used.
There were signs of paint flaking from the walls. The roof leaked profusely, especially at Moneague. The ventilation openings, they were too small. The doors are covered by steel plate. Fire hose reel is inappropriately placed and in the space allotted for children. It's placed in space allotted for children. The top bunks of the beds are without rails. Sharp edges were observed throughout the facilities.
A report also shows that the toilets in the 4 facilities were not working. There were not enough smoke detectors and mattresses were in poor condition. One committee member wanted to know how no one identified these issues until after the buildings were handed over to the Jamaica Constabulary Force, JCF.
Why now we are just finding out that these things were not in place? For example, the separation of the unit for male and female. Why now just finding out that? For example, why now just finding out that the windows were too small? What happened to the monitoring? What would have happened to the collaboration between yourselves and let's say the local authority?
The Security Ministry explained that the units were financed by the Jamaica Emergency Employment Program, JEEP, and built by the National Works Agency. They said the JCF was not a part of the project until the units were handed over in 2015, which again raised questions about who should be responsible for repair work. For Committee Chairman Fitz Jackson, the blame lies entirely with the JCF.
If you're going to establish these facilities, the JCF need to satisfy itself that the design and the nature of the facility meets whatever minimum criteria there is to be met. And now you build it after you find that it have deficiency or weaknesses that you're going to correct. This is the kind of silo mentality that we've been suffering from.
The committee still wants an explanation for why the deficiencies were not identified after the facilities were built. So they have decided to send the full House a report so it can look into whether it's the NWA or the contractors who worked on the project who should really be paying the bill and not the Security Ministry. All the same, the ministry has already budgeted $17 million for preliminary repairs, which it says should be finished in 4 weeks. Herman Green, TVJ News.
6 guns and over 400 rounds of ammunition were seized yesterday during an operation at a warehouse at Newport West in Kingston. The 6-hour operation was carried out by the Custom Enforcement Team and the Counter-Terrorism and Organized Crime Investigation Branch. 5 handguns, 1 M16 rifle, and 484 assorted rounds of ammunition were found in a barrel. The weapons were found in a shipment of food from the United States. No arrest has been made in connection with the seizure.
The Jamaica Urban Transit Company, JUTC, says it will be intensifying strategies to fight against the vandalism of its buses. This is due to an increase in cases of stone throwing and other deliberate damage to the state-run company vehicles since the start of the year. The incidents have prompted one victim of a recent attack to tell the tale of what she described as a chilling experience on a JUTC bus. The company called a press briefing at the JUTC depot in Spanish Town, St. Catherine today. TVJ's Kalisha Williams reports.
In the wake of a series of stone-throwing incidents, shattering the windows of JUTC buses and even hurting passengers, the state-run bus company is reportedly at wit's end. 81 incidents since January. Yulette Patterson says she was traveling on an express bus when she heard a noise. She later felt some kind of pressure on her body and fell to the floor. She says she can remember passengers screaming, thinking the sound was a gunshot.
I was saying, I wonder if I get gunshot because people shouting gunshot. I remember I laying there in pain and a lady, she bent down and she looked at me and asked me if I'm okay. And I asked her to please just check me and see if I'm bleeding, to see if I got any gunshot. And she said, no, but my mouth was bleeding.
It was later discovered that a stone was thrown through the window near Miss Patterson's seat, and she got injured by the flying splinters. Meanwhile, the JUTC says it's alarmed by the frequency of these incidents. The company's managing director, Paul Abrams, says incidents such as the one Ms. Patterson described have a lasting impact on the company. He outlined that over $50 million was spent on repairs over a 4-year period, money which he said could be put to better use.
The JUTC and its financial challenges really and truly would love to have that $50 million to do something else. It's not only the loss of the damage to the vehicles, but it's also the bus is out of service, it loses revenue, staff have to be paid, it's an inconvenience to commuters, and it goes on and on, just like a pebble that falls in the water and the ripples continue till it reaches the end of the shore.
Mr. Patterson says the Jamaica Constabulary Force and Crime Stop will be stepping in to help stop persons who continue to vandalize the buses. Head of the Police Highway and Traffic Division, DSP Calvin Allen, who was at the press briefing, thinks the attacks on the JUTC buses are planned and do not occur arbitrarily.
There is some amount of intelligence that we are currently working on related to timing, related to some of the routes where the this incident occurs, and also information which is leading us into a particular direction.
He pointed to a dedicated JCF team which will be set up to assist the JUTC. He says although the team has been around for years now, they had to be doing other things. The cops will now be fully focused on the JUTC.
Dedicatedly meaning that is their role and function solely to work alongside with the JUTC towards greater safety of the commuting public as also the properties of the company.
So far, one person has been arrested and charged in connection to one case of vandalism and is set for court. Kalisha Williams, TVJ News.
In the first of a two-part story, reporter Krista Campbell revisits the farming community of Bog Hole in the northern hills of Clarendon, where months after heavy rains ravaged farms, there is little replanting and even less reaping. And with farmers still losing crops, there's concern that there might be shortages in the markets during the busy Christmas period. TVJ's Krista Campbell has this update.
Clearer days in the farming area of Bog Hole, Clarendon, but farmers say a dark cloud still looms. Acres of food and tree crops devastated by floodwaters from heavy rains in May and June this year. Those floodwaters lingering months after the event.
The water has now drawn and the land, as you can see, is covered with grass because we are not able to prepare it because of period there, and some farmers have not yet recovered.
But the farmers say they have been trying to make use of whatever lands are available.
Sometimes the vegetable crop don't need really the plow land, so you can use a fork to cultivate the land, and after cultivating the land now you can do your sowing or your planting. The vegetable will fare, but for the more longer crops like the cabbage and the peppers, you would have to plow the land and get it banked to sink the water below the plant roots.
Replanting on that side, that was on the hill. We use raft gopher, so we plant it down here. So that's about it for now.
But with very little returns so far, farmers say some crops are scarce.
Right now, Bog Hole is not producing vegetable, and vegetable cannot be bought on the general national market because lettuce is over $300 a pound in some places. When a man have it in Bog Hole, it's treated as gold.
In the second part of this TVJ News follow-up on the farming situation in Bog Hole, Clarendon, we look at the promised assistance to the farmers and get the Agriculture Ministry's response to their challenges. Krista Campbell, TVJ News.
And we now go to Archie at the Smart Board for comments from those on social media. Archie?
Thanks, Lorraine. Here's a question today. We're asking, currently, Commonwealth citizens are allowed to sit in the Jamaican Parliament. Do you think it's time to change this practice? Why or why not? Nat says, the MPs who have raised this issue now should have been thinking about the matter, but they're too busy sleeping in Parliament or absent. They should use the time in Parliament to repeal and replace many of our antiquated laws and take care that their green and orange slips are not exposed like they are now. Hashtag double standards. Henrique says, I think all of our parliamentarians should be from other countries. I don't think they will make this country any worse than it already is. Tamara Thomas says, right now I don't business who want to sit where, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was all Chinese sitting in there. My reason is I don't care. I could sit, stand or crawl for all I care. Laverne Johnson says, I don't think it needs to change for any reason. It matters not from where they come. The behavior is just the same. Keep your comments coming on Facebook and Twitter. Facebook.com/Television Jamaica and tweet at Television Jam. The Business Day and news from overseas after the break.
Good evening and welcome to the Business Day. I'm Herman Green. The Jamaican dollar continued its strengthening today, reaching a new 6-week low at the end of trading. That 6 weeks low is $128.87, a price the currency has not been since August. It means the dollar is almost at the level it was 1 year ago. The Canadian dollar closed at $103.24. The pound sterling is selling for $168.13, and the euro is selling for $151.17. Jamaica has not been affected by or is expecting to be affected by a round of new sanctions imposed on Venezuela at the end of August. Dashan Hendricks reports.
Seeking to further isolate Venezuela, the U.S. on August 24 imposed new sanctions on the country through an executive order, aiming to restrict its ability and that of the state-owned oil company, PDVSA, to issue new debt in U.S. dollars. It raised the questions if the Petrocaribe agreement, to which Jamaica is a signatory, could be impacted, since Jamaica owes Venezuela money through that agreement and will continue to owe for a long time and generate new debt once the price of oil goes above $40 a barrel. On Tuesday, Acting Financial Secretary Darlene Morrison addressing the concern in Parliament's Internal and External Affairs Committee.
The only way the executive order can impact our debt payments is if we effect payments either through a U.S. bank or through a bank within the U.S.
Ms. Morrison pointed out that the sanctions affect only U.S. persons. Despite that, she said there were jitters when Jamaica attempted to pay outstanding sums owing to Venezuela recently.
We did have an instance of a bank holding a payment while it got information as to exactly what it was. We have been in discussions with the U.S. Treasury and the U.S. through our ambassador, and the payments were released because there was really no reason for them to be held.
That having been sorted out, Ms. Morrison told the committee she does not anticipate any further hiccups going forward. The committee turning its attention then to the state of the Petrocaribe Fund, which holds the debt Jamaica owes Venezuela, was told it remains robust and profitable. The deal itself is not operating how it should, though.
Previously that the number of barrels per day, which should have been about 23,000, has been reduced. So the actual inflow.
He did not say what it has been reduced to, but pointed out that with oil prices being around $50 a barrel now, not much money is flowing into the Petrocaribe Development Fund, but it continues to meet its obligations.
While the inflows are less, we're still supporting the rest of the public sector, the government of Jamaica in its programs.
For the Business Day, I am Dashan Hendricks.
Oil prices rallied today to finish at their highest level in more than a week. Oil for delivery in November rose $1.34 or 2.7% to settle at $50.92 a barrel. It is the highest price for oil since the end of September. The JSE index eased off its all-time high today, closing down 600 points, while the junior market index is down 3 points. Cable and Wireless, Dolphin Cove, Express Catering, JMMB Group, Lasco Financial Services, NCB Financial Group, Sagicor Group, and Supreme Ventures were among the stocks posting gains. Among those recording losses were AMG Packaging and Paper, Grace Kennedy, Jetcon, Medical Disposables and Supplies, Proven Investments, and Stationery and Office Supplies. And that's the Business Day. I'm Herman Green. Good evening.